Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Mark Bentsen, CIO at CellGate Access Control Systems. And before in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past theirs. That's where Cyberlinks comes in. We partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to bring you the best products at the best possible price. So whether it's managed SIM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the best product at the best price. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Mark, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about CellGate and your role there as CIO?
Sure. So CellGate is a total property security access company. All right, what does that mean? If you think of perimeter security, where you have, back in the days, it was guns, gates, and guards, right? So this is the gate access, getting into buildings, all of that infrastructure. And then, of course, the security part of it with cameras. And we have a cloud infrastructure that our customers are able to manage on their own. We have different kind of market segments, whether it be for private residents, multifamily, commercial buildings, and you will see where a lot of the people that use our products are those that have properties that are difficult to reach with a regular wired access. So imagine that you've got a senator in Idaho with a ranch, right? Or you have somebody that's got an oil rig, or you have some sort of rather remote location that requires security. And CellGate also doesn't just handle the devices. So we're hardware, software, firmware, we're the whole package, which gives us a lot of advantage in the way that we position our products and then what we're able to offer to our customers, because we have that sort of 360 view of what's required to provide access control and security.
Fantastic. Now, I would imagine that now with things like Starlink, does that help, in this realm of, providing security in these remote areas where maybe even cell isn't very very accessible?
So that's definitely opening up a lot of connectivity for lots of people, opportunities. For us, we really rely on the cellular coverage that currently exists. So net that we currently use is what's covered today. And even though Starlink will give you a sort of different set of geography than we require, I think that you're going to see more people move to that for remote access for their mobile needs. But for us, we're able to cover it within what we get through traditional coverage that you just can't hit with a wire, but you've got to be able to get cellular there.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that's been very challenging, I think, historically. Once you get out into the more rural areas of the country, it's tough getting a wire out there, and getting that ISP connection.
One thing that's really wild, and this is unknown by most consumers, is that it can be very, very difficult to know who's going to give you the best signal, right? And there are so many different carriers, their marketing departments that'll talk about, hey, we're going to be able to provide whatever's best. And when we really look into the engineering, the ability to go from one cellular company to the other to fail over into another one because there's been either a flood of bandwidth on a tower, there's been, during the day, there's orbital changes. If there is a necessary requirement to swap over, it is extremely difficult just from the engineering perspective to be able to detect it and roll that over. But that's an area that we operate in that pretty much nobody else has been able to solve. So that does give us a differentiation.
That's awesome. So what do? You check ping times and DNS resolution, or how's that work for kind of determining that?
Well, for us, the telemetry's out at device. We're able to keep a heartbeat with it. And then if for some reason there's inactivity, we would go through a series of checks to determine is one of the reasons why we missed a heartbeat or it wasn't sending back, was it connectivity, which is not uncommon. So is it just keep trying that same cellular chip, or does it need to figure out another way to check back in? And so the way that it'll scan through and see which it wants to use initially, it can lock in on that rather than saying, okay, who's strongest right now? Do you see?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so like it seems so logical to just talk about it and say, yeah, just whatever's strongest right now, use that. But once it's made that decision, getting the device to kind of reset itself to consider who do I need to be talking to make sure that I'm maintaining that connection is a very challenging engineering problem.
Yeah. And I suppose that, often you may have a, one carrier with a very strong signal, but the bandwidth, as you were saying, for whatever reason, might not be there. So there's no real throughput. And then being able to have the device be able to kind of, hot swap over to another, fail over to another carrier. I mean, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So that cellular to cellular is a huge deal that, for us, we're working with our products. That's kind of like what is the next step in our line is to have more intelligence at that spot.
That's super cool. No, I love that. Now, you co-founded another company, Secure for
Mhm.
AI, and that's Secure IVAI.
Mhm.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, prior to starting that company, I was working in software for basically a banking software company, also some healthcare. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and prior to that, I did about a decade at FedEx and in technology as well. So I meet up with a friend of mine from fourth grade. All right. So for everyone that's listening, just imagine how many friends you have that you've known since fourth grade. And he had been a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, for almost a decade. And we got together, hung out one weekend. He's actually out in Abilene in West Texas. And and he's like, Mark, I am I am really, really tired of working for other people. And if ever we were gonna start up, let's do it now. You've got the AI background, I've got the security background. Let's start this thing. And so from that, we progressed to put together a company where we were doing a couple different things. Mainly, we were doing software development in coordination with the University of Texas at Dallas for some of our AI products. And we were also starting to do some implementations, just kind of taking AI, getting it safely uh, set up inside of small and medium-sized businesses. And then that gave us the ability to do a lot of speaking and presentations for a variety of places we wouldn't have normally had access to because they were looking early on for people that had real world experience putting um, generative AI into offices and trying to get some success out of it, some real traction, not just talking about it, but could show something that had been demonstrated.
Uh,
And yeah, so that just kind of led on to starting up the company. We had a customer for over a year who then asked me to come on as CIO. That was Cellgate.
I love it. And I saw, I think on your website, this really cool phrase that I hadn't seen before, an AI MSP, which I thought was fantastic. So, an artificial intelligence managed service provider makes
Mhm.
perfect sense. So, I think that's a kind of a natural evolution, if you will, on the on that kind of managed services side of things. Being able to help small businesses implement AI, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. So I think that's kind of the future. Every small business and small and medium business, even enterprise for that matter,
Mhm.
every business really needs to be embracing AI and figuring out how they can leverage it to help them. I think that's pretty obvious to everybody. And so having that the managed services available for them where they can call somebody and get that help, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is this is an area I'd like to explore a little bit. So I still have a 50% ownership in that company, but my day job is as CIO at CellGate. And there was in the beginning, when you went and spoke about AI, it was the most emotionally charged topic you can imagine. Uh, and now it's changed quite a bit. But in the beginning, if I would show up at a company to talk about like, hey, intro to AI and all that, or just situations where I didn't know what the crowd was going to be, I would say that less than half percent or less than half of the crowd was interested in for learning more. The majority were really like, yeah, we're not having this. Go away, right? And let me see my pitchfork. It's sharpened.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of level setting and being able to realize I wouldn't necessarily be teaching a lot. It was just kind of like getting people on the same page necessarily, or whatever was in the back of their mind to be able to give more context. And now, probably 6 months ago, I was seeing more and more uh, small, medium business owners realizing, okay, we do absolutely need to start to integrate these types of systems into what we do here at our shops. But the normal question is, where do we start? And when surveyed, businesses typically say that they have really, really high concerns around security of their data, all of those sort of elements, which are valid. The As I would get into deeper conversations, I started to realize that, yeah, it was this just, okay, what is step zero? And then what do we do 3 weeks from Tuesday? And how can I have confidence in this? And just like, what is this whole journey going to look like with my company beginning to use AI? Everybody felt like they were behind, no matter how kind of ahead of the mean they may have been. But it was just, we need to begin. How do we start? And that's happening right now. There's a lot of exploration happening, some of it more organized than in other places. But there's a place that I personally am working right now that is way beyond using AI for writing better emails. All right. Which I swear that's what most people think AI is. There's this habit that when somebody first started using a chatbot, I like Claude personally, if you ask me. I pay for all of them, but I lean on Claude. And that when they first start using it, whatever they saw, they think, oh, okay, yeah, that's AI. But 2 months ago, like when we first began talking with each other about setting up for today, there are things that you can do today that you couldn't even have imagined doing back then when we first had our conversation. And that acceleration is unbelievable. So today, for example, I'll be working on being able to talk to our entire database that lives in Microsoft Fabric. All right. So normally you would do that by setting up Power BI reports, having dashboards,
Mhm.
but today, if I can just ask in natural language, I need to know about this, or what about these sort of, what's the LTV in this market segment? And I can mix and match all of these various business critical questions to help me make decisions directly into what, in this case, Claude.
Yeah.
I'm able to get intelligence out of that. And then I basically go back and prove that those answers stand up through our portal and kind of like fact check it.
Yeah.
But that ability to not just have a conversation between you and the AI to better craft a better language for some sort of communication, but to talk to 3 years of data across, tens of thousands of devices is a whole new world. You
Yeah.
see?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's really interesting because for most people, they get there are so many options out there. There's so many, and they hear so much about AI, so many new products, so many new services. As you said, like the growth is incredible right now,
Mhm.
and not all of those products are gonna make it. But I'll give you, there's just you look at historically, you got the most recently the dot-com bubble where there was so much innovation. Most of those, didn't make it, but those that did were fantastic, right? And you go back even to the, automotive industry. Early on, we had hundreds of automobile manufacturers, but only a handful made it through there. And I think we're going to see the same thing here with AI, obviously on a larger scale, right? But we're seeing thousands of different products and companies. And it's going to be a much smaller number that actually makes that. A lot of those will kind of be filtered out. So I think the challenge for a lot of small and medium business and enterprise is kind of figuring out who are going to be the winners, right? What's the right product and how do you go about deciding that? So what's your North Star on that? How do you guide people in that?
Well, I think the winner is going to wind up being Google. They've already got their infrastructure in place, and Bezos is like is talking about making data centers in space to create more of the, um, you know, yeah. The this is what I tell people because I think the question is, well, today, what should I use, right?
Right. Hmm.
I don't want to start on down uh, a path that is relying on one particular platform, let's say Claude, Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, whatever, and then all of a sudden it is acquired or goes away or whatever the deal is. So I would say that's probably the wrong question. Just pick one and begin of the frontier models and begin to use it and build kind of your internal understanding of how to use these types of tools and put it to real practical use. I wouldn't get too far out there on the edge, but just like begin.
Yeah.
I think it was Winston Churchill. If you come to a fork in the road, take it, right? And that so any of the models will be fine for that beginning process. The moving from one to the other is actually not that a big of a deal. And in the end, who knows? It's everybody's guess. I would say probably whoever has the biggest lead on infrastructure will wind up at the end standing up in the octagon. But
Well, well, interesting because I think that I think you're absolutely right when it's Google's going to be a player there. I mean without a doubt, right? I
mhm,
don't think there's any real question about that unless they somehow massively fumble the ball. But I think most of these foundational models, the big ones that we're seeing now, the Groks, the Chat GPTs, the Geminis, the Claudes, I think they provide such a fundamental base that's so easy to use. I'm not really concerned with those products moving forward in the future. I think those will be there for
mhm,
the foreseeable future. And, to your point, building on top of any of those is a lot faster. It isn't that hard. And then transitioning, should one go away, is not going to be the end of the world for you,
mhm,
right? That's going to be easy enough. I think that the interesting part is all of the companies that are coming up with the agentic AI, have your sales agent and all the smaller products that are kind of made, not to say out of the box necessarily, but are leveraging AI in a specific way to help you. That's the one where it gets interesting. And I give you, for instance, like my new favorite AI thing, and it's not new. They've been around for like 13 years. So, but I think that the timing is perfect for them is Darktrace. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Darktrace is, they use AI at the core. They were built, with AI in mind and on AI from the get, and it's used in security. So like email security, I think is a great example. It's exactly what you would think when you're like, how would we use AI for email security? And kind of why aren't we? Dark
Mm.
traces that. It's like it understands, how you normally write email. It understands when you write email, the whole nine yards. So it totally gets you. And then when suddenly an email comes in, it uses its little AI brain. It's like, oh, you know what? You wouldn't have seen this little, this character in the email address because you're a human, but I see what they're doing here, and this is bad. So I'm gonna take this off your plate for you. So it's like the perfect use for AI and email
Mhm.
security. And so I think products like that, I see that as like the future, right? Like hands down,
Mhm.
obviously. And I think a lot of people are doing some really cool stuff in that same vein. And I think the real challenge is deciding like, well, which one? And to your point, fork in the road, take the fork, right?
Mhm.
I think you adopt, but there is a balance, right? You can't just be like, that's a cool product, that's a cool product, and all the cool new shiny toys and gobble them all up. So what would be your advice in terms of, choosing which shiny new toy? Do you have a preference? Is it just like, hey, look, I'm a Claude guy. I think Claude is great for people.
Mhm.
If you do nothing else, get a Claude subscription and start playing with it and seeing what can do. What's your advice for people as they kind of venture into the world of AI?
Right. So Darktrace, they don't have like their own frontier multi-billion dollar model that they're basing their AI on, do they?
So they have their own LLM that they've built it on. So it's all their own internal stuff. So they're not using like Claude or ChatGPT. So yes, I think that's the answer to your question there.
Yeah, so for solutions that have a proprietary model that they're using, one, there's the obvious vendor checklist. You got to know your requirements. Does the whatever the product is that you're going to buy, does it fit those? Is it something that you're going to be able to get the right support for and all the rest? But for the model, it's like learn a little bit about what it was trained on.
Yeah.
You know? I mean that's going to be extremely relevant for how it's used, and like the model will be a reflection of what it was trained on, and um, so get some insight into that, and if that hopefully it's a little bit narrow to your needs because those types of models aren't trained on everything in the whole world that's ever been written down or every image that's ever been taken or
Right.
you see what I mean?
Yep.
They're not these large, like as in everything they possibly can get models. They're usually more focused on whatever the end product is that they're targeting. So if that's a good fit, research it, and then I would try it out to like whatever the internal standards are for being able to say yes, no, maybe wait, or and but that's how I personally do it.
Yeah.
The but my world is quite a bit different in regards to we are looking at developing stuff with the universities. You
Yeah.
see, so for Secure for AI, we would look at there's almost 2 million models on Hugging Face, for example. So we could look across all of those models that have been developed as locations where we may look at specialized characteristics and use them for special purposes versus just kind of like, okay, I'm going to get a Claude license for the company and these 30 people are going to use it, right? Which is more or less what I believe companies are beginning to do now.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, they're doing that sort of enterprise or small company growth model for providing services. Whereas for me, I would be looking at how can we get to as close to the silicon as possible, and then having model selection that would be as niche as possible to our needs, and then doing all of the development around that with the university.
Yeah, love it. Well, I've also got to ask, where do you see, as you look down the road, where do you see AI going? And kind of, I know everybody's crystal ball is as good as the next person's, but for you, what's the future look like?
uh, okay. Well, nothing controls AI better, or nothing controls computers better than computers. So I think that we'll see. It's right now it's really muddled because people are throwing around agents, that term, very, very, very loosely. And in engineering and in academia, like it's not the way that Salesforce is using the word agents, you know?
Right.
Uh, so you should have very little human interaction. You should have high decision making in an agent, or like, yeah, it should be able to go and accomplish goals. So there's not a lot of true, what I would call agents as we originally targeted the next phase of growth in AI. You know, from people working with AI to AIs kind of running on their own, and then orchestrating agents. But this is the space where things are moving, and I believe that in the future, probably what is most exciting to talk about is agency. There's agency on the AI side, there's agency on the people side. And being in a CIO role, you definitely have to look at technology and the business horizontally across the whole company, right? Like you are looking at the ev everything across the business and being able to enable that and to provide security, redundancy, all that stuff for the business. Now, if I'm in a silo in a technology team, I'm really thinking about kind of my own needs and not necessarily equally caring about somebody who's in the data warehouse and what they're facing. But we do have to have this horizontal view of how are we going to run this business? How are we going to be competitive? How are we going to beat our competitors at what we're doing? And that does require you to kind of step into more agency. Have it not just like in your area, making sure that you're doing a great job there, but really does the business, are we crushing it?
Yeah.
And so how many people do you know that you work with, or for people that are listening that are at a decently large company, let's say over 250 people that spend a lot of their time focused on not just in your area, but bringing business impact to uh, the company. And when I would do performance reviews, like back at FedEx, for example, I would look at three different factors. One, I would look at innovation. I would look at revenue, things that somebody did that directly impacted revenue and cost savings. So if you are able to work on projects, like you step up, you take your person agency and step up to push forward initiatives at your company that impact that, not just like in the area you are working, but across the whole company, that's a greater level of agency. In the same way, AI having a greater impact, being able to make decisions for a larger part of the business is incredibly important and will be in the future as well. And I think so both people, not just kind of like staying in their safe place in their vertical area in their business, but being willing to step out, take risks, and try to do like a broader, deeper job of impacting profitability for their company, as well as using the type of tools and capabilities that really enable that on the AI side and technology side are really where we're moving. That is the future.
I couldn't agree more. Now, I think we're in this really interesting kind of period with AI and agents, right? Since we're talking, agentic AI here, where I don't think the AI decision making, I don't think that the trust is there, and I don't think AI has kind of quite earned the trust yet to where it's like, well, okay, you don't hallucinate. I don't mind giving you my, let's say, credit card and letting you go and buy the things that the company needs or that I need,
Mhm.
right? And handling it, without like very close
Yeah,
supervision.
we're not there. We're not. I'm like, yeah, we are not there.
We're not there. And things are, increasing so rapidly. Um, if you had to guess, how long do you think it'll be before we are there?
It's funny. I heard that OpenAI was going to be releasing some like a agent or workflow structure today. So yeah, less than 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, less than 6 months, and then there'll be a lot of guardrails around that, but it'll be very quick for whatever your level, your tolerance of risk is. Like, don't spend more than $100, but I want to go and accomplish this thing. Like, do all my school shopping for my kids, keep it under this amount, and if it's more, I need to approve it. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, every 7 months we're increasing, we're doubling. You guys talk about Ray's law on this show?
We haven't, but let's go. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. So Ray's law is that essentially the okay, so this is a mind blower.
Love it.
Every 7 months, the capability of AI, the like is every 7 months it's doubling. So that means in 2 years it's 15x. Now people are super familiar with Moore's law, right?
Yep.
And which is that the number of transistors that doubles every 2 years. So that is no, like we don't, that's way, 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 way too slow.
Mhm.
So instead of doubling in 2 years, you're 15 times on the current trajectory of what we are right now. The and for people that want to nerd out, there's the concept of coherence, where if you have a data center and the coherence would be where every single like part of a like yeah, everything knows what everything else is doing
Mhm.
at that moment, at the same moment. All right. So
Right.
if I'm processing something inside of a data center for I know what every other uh, process is occurring. So that's kind of on the way to what winds up being the definition for artificial general intelligence, or on the way to super intelligence, uh, which can have different definitions depending who you're talking to. But nonetheless, this is where we start to get to a place where there's this universal, I know what's happening, not disparate, like I'm firing off, trying to do different things, not in concert. And so I think Grok 5 will be able to get to 3 million events, I believe, next year or in 2027. So that is definitely a marker for that level of intelligence. Right now, it's like 1 million, which is unimaginable that you can have that much knowledge inside of the systems, that they know every single thing that everybody else is doing. Just the math on that doesn't
Yeah.
really work. So for it to actually be what's happening right now today is is mind-blowing. Now, when you have that much of an understanding of what the state is and what the goals are that you're trying to accomplish, you can start to see the result of why we have this acceleration curve, and why I'm super confident telling you that agents are less than 6 months away.
Wow. Okay. That is impressive. So, I mean, at that rate, I guess that kind of explains why, people are more optimistic, or some people are optimistic about the general artificial intelligence, or the super intelligence. I mean, if you're increasing 15-fold every 2 years, and already we're at a pretty impressive we're at an impressive level. I mean, thanks to this technology, cars drive themselves, phones the computers
Mhm.
understand you when you talk to them, at a basic level. That's mind blowing when you rewind 20, 30 years ago. And I think, in your coding, even like pre Google, you're doing some coding, you're trying to figure stuff out. that was it was the dark ages, if you will,
Mhm.
of programming. It was tough, right? It was hard. It was hard going,
Mhm.
right? And now we stand on these shoulders of of tech giants doing
Mhm.
amazing things instantaneously. With it would just think it and boom, out comes the stuff. It's really impressive. So, I mean, it's that's
But
impressive.
so instead of like looking forward, because that is what people are asking, like, hey, what's the timeline between now and when we're going to get this? But again, to put that into perspective, I just say, well, look backwards a little bit to be able to appreciate it. And at this moment, like I said, the majority of people I talk to, they're using these very, very powerful generative AI solutions to write better email, okay, or to summarize stuff, or whatever the case may be. And what I'm saying is that later on this afternoon, I'm going to be using one of these solutions to to talk to years and years of data that has been collected by tens of thousands of different devices distributed all over the place. And I can just talk to it, right? And I can start asking it questions that can help us know where to put dollars and invest, people hours on things we're going to work on. And not only just that data, I can pull in from other systems. We use Salesforce, we use Jira, we use accounting software. We have, there's all these places we have data. And being able to bring that into a pool so that we've got this conversation that I can have with all of these different people that are contributing to give me the an answer that I then have to, I can go and then verify. That's where we are right now, today, on the 6th of October in 2025. But people aren't really using it, right? So if
Yeah.
people just step into what they can do right now today, that would blow their mind. They wouldn't
Yeah.
be worried about AGI. They would think they were in AGI. In fact, frankly, if somebody from 5 years ago opened up Claude and then started playing it, they would think they were in AGI right now.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Well, let's take a few minutes and kind of walk somebody through the like your example of what you're going to be doing later today. Like for most people, for a lot of people, I shouldn't say most. For a lot of people, their understanding of AI is ChatGPT. They go in, like you
Mhm.
said, and they're thinking, how does this improve my email? I think people understand that there is, somebody can you can in theory you can connect it to data and then it can have access to your data and give you information. But maybe walk us through this. What's this look like? Help somebody who's in that chat GPT helps me with my email and summarizes, books and reports for me to understand, well, what are the steps to get them to where you are now, where you can, connect all these different data, access all this different data, the different data sources, and then start really using it. Walk them through it.
Uh, So, I mean, in my case, I'm going to be doing this because we've got an executive meeting tomorrow. I need to prep some stuff for it. This is going to give me the ability to do it uh, really well, efficiently, and provide some answers that some of the other executives are going to need, right? But so you have to ask yourself, what data do I have access to that helps me do my job or can help me support my job or my company, right? Because you are only going to be able to use these tools outside of, at that level based on the types of data that you're able to connect it to. So when you open up your ChatGPT account or Gemini, Claude, pick whoever you want. It's going to push you towards connecting it. Now, this is where security comes in. If you're in a company, you've got to have the permissions to do that. You've got to be able to make sure that those protocols um, are good with how the systems have been set up. That's a big part of what we do at Secure for AI is making sure that companies are securely using AI and inside of where their data is. But until you take AI and lay it like a wrapper around all the stuff that you could possibly know relevant to your job, you're not able to provide business intelligence, AI, assisted business intelligence. So it's really a matter of how can I do that? Well, in many cases, people are just like attaching PDFs. So they might do some reconnaissance. They need to get some numbers. They're going to grab some stock reports. They're going to pull together who knows what PDFs. I'm studying for something. Here's some materials I've got, and I import them into the conversation. And then I'll ask in that conversation, tell me, this is what I want to know, or basically putting things together that require, like the answer is not there. You have to think about it. So that's what most people would do today is add attachments. The next step is to do it at a project level, which is, let's say, a more like not one-off instance, but you're going to be using this for a period of time. So you go into a project, you make a project, it's got a place for you to be able to store your knowledge, and then you add whatever you want, Excel sheets, Word documents, PDFs, whatever it'll accept. And then you may, in this like conversations you have in this project, you might generate some things that you like and you can add those. Now you have this sort of wheelhouse of what I know, this knowledge that's part of what you're working on. And you want to understand, where am I going with this? What am I trying to produce? Am I trying to solve a business problem? Is there something that I don't know? Like, what is our customer acquisition cost? How can I identify that? What do I need? Um, and then being able to bring that in to find it out, to be able to do projections for the next 2 years, whatever the case may be. It's bringing data into a space, whether it's in your conversation, in a project, or integrating to it, like I'm talking about with Fabric and all the rest. And the greater and more reliable set of data that you're starting with, the more effective your natural language processing, the conversations you have within ChatGPT or whatever, the better output that you're going to get for the problems you're trying to solve.
That's fantastic. I think
And
that,
and I'm sorry,
yep. No,
and double
please.
check it. Double
Yeah.
check it.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the thing, right? A lot of people get, I've talked to a few people who, as soon as they start relying on it and they get a hallucination, and now the trust is gone. So they don't even,
Mhm.
they're like, but I think there's a balance there, right?
Mhm.
Clearly, we're not at the level where AI it can just run unsupervised and you can just take it. And there's been some pretty fascinating stories of lawyers who've used it and in their filings and have referenced laws that don't exist.
Hilarious.
It,
Super
it,
funny. Yeah.
super funny when you're not the lawyer or the client,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Super funny.
Yeah. Don't
Um,
be that guy.
don't be that guy, right? And I think that's everybody's fear is how do I not be that guy? And so, um, what's your recommendation there? Is it telling your AI, hey, now check all your work, right? Just assume this information came from an untrusted source and check all the facts. How do you go about it? What's your recommendation?
Well, I think you have to learn how to audit answers, right? You have to fact check. You have to know how to actually do that, um, which would be go to the systems that have this data and calculate on your own. Like, is this absolutely correct? I mean, they're LLMs, large language model. They're not large math models. So keep that in mind. But nonetheless, you should be able to go back, fact check uh, elements that are coming out that you're going to use from the sources. And if you are just getting people's experience with the hallucinations is definitely legitimate, and they don't know what the model was trained on,
Yeah.
right? They have no idea what the model was trained on. So of course, everything on the internet is correct. So we shouldn't have hallucinations.
Right. Because, a lot of it is there's a lot of Reddit, out there. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure I trust
So
it all.
so if you are bringing in data that you're going to be using in a project or a conversation, like I described, and you have an extremely high level of confidence that the data that you are using is accurate. So that is what it's looking at. And then there are layers like this rabbit hole goes pretty deep, but you give it good instructions on how to think, sort of this chain of thought. You're helping it to stay on course on real solid data, but it is going to have to pull things together from that reliable data. You will have way, way, way less hallucinations than if it's just answer this question to me. I'm not asking the question very precisely, and just go use all of the data that you have out there, that I don't know what you're using or whether it's correct or incorrect, and then it gives some answer back. And if I don't like that, or I can spot it as being incorrect, then AI is garbage. That's not the case at all. You have to understand, like, this is a very, very specific tool that does specific things. Once you start to realize how it wants to do that, then it'll become more effective for your use. And the second area that people can learn a lot from is this sort of meta use. So however you're going to ask your questions, say, can you help me ask this in a more effective way?
Yeah.
Right? And then walking that back multiple times so that how you're using the tool is in the way that the tool should be used. Like, it will know, all right, if I'm given this information, and instead of like shotgun blasting what I'm trying to figure out that I think you want, but I know very like a sniper know exactly what you want, and we're aiming at it, I can go and work with it. Much more success for end users.
I love it. Couldn't agree more. Mark, this has been an absolute blast. I think we could do this all day, but before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you, CellGate, and Secure for AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would really encourage people that are interested in sort of the actual physical security of buildings or homes and all that to check out CellGate, CELL-GATE.com. And for me, LinkedIn is a great place. Everybody messes up my last name. It's Bentsen. So Mark Bentsen at LinkedIn. And then secure4ai.com is the managed service AI company that I'm a co-founder and half owner for. And for people that are interested in finding out more about AI, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Mark, and until next time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.